For many years now, the SEC has been one of the best conferences in college football, but it is also one of the most fun conferences to watch. One reason it is so fun to watch is because it's so competitive, and really any team can be good. Recently on the channel, I've been doing a lot more college football videos, so here's another one today. Today I'll be predicting the SEC for the 2020 to 2021 season. I know the SEC has two separate conferences, but if it was one, this is how I think it would end up. Let's get right into it. Coming in at number 14, the worst team in the SEC in my opinion, I have Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt had the worst recruiting class in the SEC, and they didn't have too good of a team to begin with. There are very few winnable games for Vanderbilt, but there's also a lot that they can lose. I really don't expect much from Vanderbilt this season. Next up, at number 13, I have Arkansas. I really don't think Arkansas will do much this season either. They had a not great recruiting class, and they don't have that much returning talent. I do think they'll be better than last season, though, because I still think there's a tiny bit of talent on the team, and even if they only win about 3 or 4 games, I still think it can be a good year for them. Coming in at number 12, I have Missouri. Missouri had a really bad season last year, and it didn't help that they had a poor recruiting class. They're losing one of their best players in Howard, Akue-Bunam, and they did bring in receiver Damon Hazelton from Virginia Tech. They could win some games this season, but there are a lot they can, and in the end, I think they'll be the number 12 team in the SEC. Coming in at number 11, I have South Carolina. South Carolina actually had a pretty good recruiting class, but they have such a tough schedule. They had a tough schedule last year, and I don't think it's as tough this year, but it's still very, very hard. They have games against Clemson, LSU, Georgia, and many more. They went 4-8 last year, and I think it'll be similar this season. Next up, at number 10, I have Mississippi State. Mississippi State was pretty good last season, and they won 6 games. I think it will be about the same this year, especially with a pretty good recruiting class. I think they'll be good this year, and I think they will be bowl eligible. I just don't think they'll be on the same level as some other teams in the SEC. Next up is, at number 9, is Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin hasn't been the most successful coach, but I think he can help Ole Miss to be a good team this year. I think they'll be on the same level as Mississippi State. They have a tough schedule, and I think in best case they'll go 7-5, and worst case about 4-8. They had a decent recruiting class, and I really think they will be an average team this season. Now heading into the top 8. At number 8, I have the University of Kentucky. Kentucky fell off last season, and it doesn't help that they lost a big player in Lynn Bowden. I still think they will have a good season, and I think they can be close to being ranked. They have some tough games on their schedule, but they also have some very winnable ones. They had the 23rd best recruiting class in the country, and they will try and help and replace Lynn Bowden, who was their biggest playmaker. I think they'll go about 8-5 and maybe even 9-4 this season. Now heading into the top 7. I think all the teams in the top 7 will be ranked, so this is just in the order I think they will end up. At number 7, I have Tennessee. Tennessee had a great finish to last season, and I think they will continue that into this year, and I think they will be ranked. I think they can be really good. There's just a lot of better teams in the SEC. They had a really good recruiting class, 10th in the country, and they brought in a lot of good talent. They have multiple easy games, with a few tough ones every once in a while. I expect a good, but not great season by Tennessee this year. At number 6, I have Texas A&M. Just like Tennessee, I think Texas A&M will be ranked this year. They had a really good recruiting class, and it was actually 6th best in the country. A&M didn't have the best year last season, but that was because they had a tough schedule. I really think Kellen Mond will have a step up this season, and I think it might be his best season yet. I think they will be competitive this year. I just think there are 5 teams that are better than them in the SEC. At number 5, I have the University of Auburn. I think Auburn could surprise a lot of people and be even better than this season. I've talked about it before, but I expect a huge step up from Bo Nix. I think Auburn will have a top offense with Jatavius Whitlow, and Seth Williams is someone I think will have a great year. They're losing a few key defensive players, and their defense doesn't look the best. The recruiting class was ranked 7th in the country, and maybe that could help the defense out. I think they'll lose either 2 or 3 games this season, and I really think if some players can step up, they can be one of the top-ranked teams in college football. Coming in at number 4, I have the University of Florida. I almost had Florida lower than this, but they aren't really losing anyone too important than C.J. Henderson. I think Kyle Trask will improve, and even though they lost Van Jefferson, they still have a top tight end in Kyle Pitts. Florida only has 2 really tough games this season, and even if they can win only one of them, who knows? Florida could be a sneaky team for the college football playoff. The 9th best recruiting class in the nation is great, and Florida could be a top team not just in the SEC, but in college football. Now entering the final 3, the top 3 teams, I think, in the SEC. At number 3, I have LSU. LSU's coming off a national championship, but they have so many of their players going to the NFL. Miles Brennan could be good, especially with some solid receivers. Personally, I think Jamar Chase is the best receiver in college football, and I think Derek Stingley is the best cornerback. LSU has another good receiver in Terrence Marshall, and they had the 4th best recruiting class in the country. I think if they can win the game against Alabama, they could be in the college football playoff, but if they can't, it's going to be very tough to make it there. And now the final 2. At number 2, I have the University of Alabama. I could definitely see Alabama being the number 1 team in the SEC this season, but in the end, I think they'll be 2nd. I think they will lose twice this season, once in the regular season against Georgia and once in the SEC championship also against Georgia. I don't think Mac Jones will be able to be that good, and I think that'll be a big reason why they lose a few times. They might not need to rely on him that much, though, because I think they'll give Najee Harris a lot of carries. They could make the college football playoff, but I think the losses will be too much for them. They had the 2nd best recruiting class, and they had some top receivers in Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith. They also have a top cornerback in Patrick Surtain Jr. Alabama has a really good team. I just think they won't be as good as number 1. Based on the last one and process of elimination, you probably know that at number 1, I have the University of Georgia. Jake Fromm wasn't the greatest quarterback, and I think because he left, Georgia got someone new, they have the chance to be one of the top teams in college football. I think Jamie Newman can be in contention for the Heisman Trophy. George Pickens will probably have a huge season. Georgia had the top recruiting class in the country, and they had just a good team overall. I think they could go undefeated, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see the University of Georgia in this year's national championship game. That's going to be about it for this video. If you enjoyed and want to see more college football videos on the channel, don't forget to leave a like, and if you're new here, feel free to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.